Well, today's devotion is from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 22 through 25. I'd like to read those verses and we'll discuss them. For Jews demand signs and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to the Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. Well, Paul's divided mankind into two groups here, Jews and Gentiles. Now, the Jews had the truth, they had the scriptures, but they followed tradition and they followed their interpretation of the scriptures. A crucified Messiah would be an insult to them because it would indicate defeat and they would not overthrow the Romans. They had the truth presented to them, but they rejected it. Now the Greeks, or we also refer to as Gentiles, they loved wisdom. They were always searching for universal truth. Sound familiar like today? Man's reason was esteemed. By 400 BC, they had built an empire with such brilliance of mind and artistic development that it still dazzles the mind today. But by 100 BC, it had disintegrated. They had some schools of wisdom, but they also failed. Now, to them, a crucified Christ was utterly preposterous, ridiculous. It went against any rational worldview. But their civilization, their cultivation of the civilized world had prepared it for the reception of the gospel. Now, to the believers, Christ is the power and the wisdom of God. Paul is speaking from a human point of view when he talks about the foolishness of God, from a human's perspective of foolishness and weakness, but it is a divine scheme. Throughout history, we've seen what's been recorded here in the Bible, that God sometimes acts in a foolish and weak and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's at first. It's not till afterwards that we realize his overwhelming strength and wisdom. Now, today, as in those early years, there are two distinct tendencies among man that resist the gospel. One is the desire for miracles or supernaturalism. And the other one is the conceit of wisdom. It's a one-sided rationalism. Now, with that, God allows it to become folly. Wisdom perishes, and its own schools also perish, and it never is unable to maintain its own progress. And we can look back at civilizations, how they got progressed and they just fell apart. And now you look at those nations, you go, they were able to do all that stuff? Doesn't seem possible. We're the most supreme. Nope, God is still in control. And he wants two things for us for the salvation. He wants us to repent and to believe. And to repent means to change your mind and your attitude towards sin. And basically is humbling yourself, and then believe that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life for salvation. I hope today's devotion has been challenging and encouraged you. Thanks for tuning in.